Hi, I'm Monica Slonogorsky, Vice President of Research with Telesperience. You're listening to The Cage, featuring key figures and thinkers from the telecoms industry. 10 minutes, no questions barred. In this interview, our Chief Strategist Teresa Cottam talks to MDS's Rob Smith about SMEs and asks Rob, how can CSPs manage their SME business profitably?
Good afternoon, Rob, and welcome to The Cage.
Good afternoon, Teresa. Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about the small and medium-sized enterprise market and whether it's really any different to the large enterprise market. A lot of people seem to think it's one and the same thing, and there really isn't any need to differentiate between the two. What do you think, Rob?
So, they're not the same thing. And yes, differentiation is necessary. In terms of their needs and their expectations, large enterprises, corporates, government agencies, they're all going to have more complex business requirements. They're going to demand wholly bespoke arrangements, pricing, discounts, and they're going to expect dedicated customer service. Whereas your small and medium enterprise customers, in particular micro businesses, the business solutions at that level need to support a similar level of sophistication, but one that can be scaled and automated and managed at much lower volumes and price points.
Okay, so in which case, what do you think are the top three things that service providers should be doing in order to get it right and prevent commoditisation in the SME market?
So I would say the three themes are trust, value and verticalisation, or specialisation, if you prefer. And while themes like these do have a lot of interdependencies, it effectively breaks down like this. In reverse order, if you look at verticalisation, that's about ensuring that the services offered are actually relevant for the businesses operating in that particular segment. And also that the service affords a granularity of control and personalisation at the admin and user level, which is just so important for roaming workers in particular. Next, you've got value, and value isn't about pricing. It's actually about ensuring the delivery seamless and secure of the disparate technologies and services. And, value is something that service providers need to maintain and demonstrate throughout the customer life cycle, which in turn requires a complex combination of analytics, assurance tools, SLAs, and just good old-fashioned, real-world customer management. And finally, you've got trust, which is really about delivering pricing transparency that for cost-conscious businesses and cost-constrained businesses, actually, the service provider has to promote a high degree of confidence with the customer that their business isn't going to be subject to bill shock incidents and the spend on the services is actually in line with their business value. I think there's more, but those are the key three.
So they've tried to address the SME market before and failed. What pitfalls do you think they should recognise from their last attempts and try to avoid this time around?
So, yes, monetising the SME market in the 90s was similar in approach and result to the convergence theme. Great idea, but didn't really happen as planned. The approach today has to avoid the pitfalls such as manual workarounds, and delivery has to be more like the delivery we associate with the web and the over-the-top players. So in other words, simplify the service offerings, but don't remove the value. Automate the processes to remove cost and speed up delivery. Make it non-technical and easy to use, and just generally adopt a new way of thinking. If we can get the right approach across technology and services, SME is potentially far more profitable than individual large enterprise deals.
So the very smallest SMEs, Rob, the micro businesses, how should we be managing them? Should they be managed as consumers on the consumer stack, do you think?
Well, no. micro businesses shouldn't be treated like consumers, and yet that's precisely how they are treated. Micro businesses find it far easier to basically hide away as consumers because there are very few benefits, it would seem, to owning up to being a business or a micro business. Basically, micro businesses are a lucrative treasure hidden in plain sight that just isn't being leveraged. And actually the figures suggest that enticing those customers onto a dedicated business-oriented platform with specialised value-based services could more than double the revenues received by the service provider.
So Rob, that being the case, what do you think are the key differentials between the business model for consumers, small and medium-sized enterprises and large enterprises?
Well, the large enterprise deal offer the kind of commercial structure to support that one-to-one arrangement, in other words, a highly bespoke deal. Whereas for consumers and SMEs, the price plans have to scale on a one-to-many basis, hence the need for automation to drive out the cost efficiencies. But the main differential between SME and consumer models is that, faults, outages, errors can be annoying for a consumer, but for a SME business, it can be anything from costly to ruinous. So quite a bit of pressure to get it right, to maintain that difference.
And are there any innovations, do you think, in terms of BSS that CSPs can bring to bear here on the SME market?
I'm not sure it's actually about technology itself, although you're right to ask about innovation. I think the innovation piece is actually taking what we've got today and integrating it so that it's an automated, seamless BSS solution.
So how can they differentiate themselves and avoid commoditising what they do then? How do they do that profitably?
Okay, so commoditisation they can avoid by meeting the needs of their customers with value-based services and doing so reliably with meaningful guarantees of service. This is about delivering what the customer wants and delivering it in harmony with the customer, not just putting something out there. So the differentiation for CSPs can be achieved by taking that to the next level, which is effectively partnering with their customers in a way that helps to promote business growth through, say, B2B2C sales. So it's not so much a two-sided business model, it's more a symbiotic business model. How do CSPs do that profitably? Well, that comes back to automation. It all seems to come back to automation. That's the key for cost efficiency and being competitive in the market.
So because CSPs want to roll out their SME offerings quite quickly, two of the ways that this is coming to market is either to use a cloud-based approach or a managed services approach. Can you explain what the difference is? What were they getting with managed services versus cloud?
So for me, a managed service suggests a far more intimate level of engagement between the service provider, the CSP or the MVNO, and the customer. And a far greater level of service and security actually provided to the end customer. In many respects, it's about having that single throat to choke with a managed service, while if you look at the cloud services, that typically is more a looser aggregation of services. It's not consolidated, it's not integrated.
Great, so thanks for that. If you could give one piece of advice, Rob, to a CSP who is on the verge of rolling out an SME business, what would that be?
So from an MDS perspective, we've run a managed service operation, which today you'd call private cloud, for many years. So this isn't about managed service or cloud. They're one and the same, effectively, but it's about the level of service. From our perspective, we're a trusted provider of managed BSS solutions to network operators and MVNOs across Europe and North America. So we experience exactly the same demands that our customers face on a daily basis. We have to integrate, automate and assure the business support systems and processes that drive revenue growth This equates to billions of dollars a year, and even tiny savings in efficiency can add up to a significant opportunity for business growth.
So thanks for talking to us about SME business today, Rob. This is that point of the interview where, having found out a little bit about that, we now want to find out a little bit about you. So the question we'd like to ask you, one of our left field questions, if you will, is if you weren't working at MDS, what would you be doing instead?
So I guess I would be in the music industry. Somewhere, somehow. So probably a sound engineer for the O2 Arena. Sounds good. Although, with my taste in music, I think being a time-travelling sound engineer would be far better. Get back and see some of the concerts with the Stones and Dylan in the 70s. I think that would be an excellent choice for me.